What's up, guys? Welcome to the video. Today, this is going to be the first of hopefully many. We're going to talk to different people across the world, hopefully. People who could just offer you some value into your life. And Ed here is one of those people who's done that for me. He's kept me in shape as I've been comp prepping and not comp prepping as well. He knows my problems very, very well, and he's helped me very, very much. So I think it was a great first choice to bring him on, because I know you guys can get some great information from him. So Ed, I'd love to know what you personally do, and do you even lift? That's my first question.
It's the ultimate question.
Exactly.
But I'm a chiropractor by trade. I specialise in neuromusculoskeletal problems, which is anything to do with the nerves, the muscles, the joints, etc. My main reason is to find out what's wrong with the body and what we can do to help it. As a chiropractor, we do specialise in the joints and the spine predominantly. However, I will address the muscles also, as for me personally, I like to treat fitness athletes, which then brings me on to, yes, I try to lift. I'm learning every day what works and what doesn't, especially, through the help of you with a couple of my competitions. But I'm learning new things every day. It's just seeing people in the gym who I know their stuff, and just kind of watching them and listening to them. Like, it only takes 5 minutes to listen to someone on a new exercise, and it's very important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, for those of you that don't know, me and Ed have prepped together. He's done 2 competitions, Miami Pro. Most recently, what was the placing? Was it?
Top 6.
Top 6, Miami Pro. God, what a journey that was. Crazy. Right, so we could jump into some of these questions. So the way I've set this up, guys, is I've got my own personal questions that I've kind of come up with for a little bit of structure. We both asked you guys for some questions, so we'll dibble in, dibble out of those at where they see fit. So I'll start off with probably a question what a lot of people would have is, what do you find is the most common injury between bodybuilders, powerlifters, and anyone who's kind of strength orientated or bodybuilding orientated?
For me personally, with it, it's normally the pelvis. Pelvis is a massive part of training, because everyone these days wants to lift heavy, lift as big as they can. However, they don't want to put in the work and do the mobility beforehand. So with that, you have tight hip flexors, underactive glutes, core doesn't work properly. And this affects how someone moves properly, particularly in the big compound lifts. It even affects your bench, your deadlift, and particularly the squat. Yeah. So the pelvis for me, normally, like specifically the sacroiliac joint, on one side is normally favoured more than the other. But it's hard to tell some of the big guys. Yes, you squat 250 kilos, but your glutes aren't working properly. Yeah. And that is a hard one. But people these days are learning to look after themselves a lot more than they used to.
Yeah. So say I come in and I've got the exact symptoms that you've described, I've got the exact same problems that you described, what would be the kind of first thing, the first go-to that you would do to treat people for that?
So the first thing you want to know is which side. It's normally people come in, it is one side they favour. So tightness is on, say, the left, for example. So the glute gets tight on that side to compensate and protect the joint. We then get compensation on the other side with the erector spinals and the QL, and they get tight. So I need to address everything as one. Yep. You have to fix the whole package. I could adjust the joint. That is the problem. Yes, that would help things. However, you need to address the muscles as well, which is kind of the field I'm trying to be slightly different in. Around that to help people.
Cool. And one thing that I've noticed when I tend to kind of go to the doctors or other chiropractors back in the day when I didn't come and see you, is that most of the time people are just going to say, you just need to stop lifting for a little bit. But what if you're one of those people, like me, like you, who, when you get told not to lift anymore, you're still going to go out and do it? What would you recommend for them? Would you tell them to kind of work around it, or would you have to just say like that you can't actually do this?
Of course, I can see where they're coming from. However, for me, if you came in with that problem today, depending on the severity, I would just advise you with a pelvic problem, no heavy lower leg or lower limb compound lifts for at least 48 hours.
Okay.
this gives the chance for the treatment to work and you to settle to do your rehab. So if you came in with this problem, I would say, right, next few days you can bench,
Yeah.
you can train shoulders, you can train arms. I'm not going to stop you training, because if I stop you training for a long period, you're going to lose all your functionality, the muscles will stop moving.
Yeah.
The big example I give the most is if Eddie Hall comes into me with this problem, the big deadlift world record holder,
Yeah.
and I tell him to stop deadlifting, he's not going to come and see me again. He's not going to listen to that advice.
Yeah.
So you have to work around, but explain why.
Yeah.
If I just say stop training and that's it, I've not given you an explanation, and that's where people go wrong these days, because they don't spend enough time with their patients.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So moving on, bringing in Eddie Hall, which is into the conversation, which is a great setup for my next question. Do you think there's much of a difference between the injuries or problems that you would see in a bodybuilder versus a powerlifter? So someone who's kind of overloading their body a very high percentage of their 1 rep max every single session, versus maybe someone who's doing a little bit lower percentage of the 1 rep max and looking for that hypertrophy and muscle building. Would you see there's a difference between injuries and posture or alignment?
In this sort of common day and age, most of the powerlifters are using bodybuilding techniques to supplement their training, and the other way around as well.
Yeah.
So I have loads of the fitness athletes come in, and they're like yourself, for example, you're squatting big numbers, big powerlifting numbers, but you have different focuses. So their PBs might be more of a lower rep range, and you will hit, say, your hypertrophy area. So you're hitting like your 5 to 7s, your 9 to 11s, for example. And with that, it's a tough one, because there's more chance of this injury 100% with being a powerlifter or a strong man, because you're always maximally trying to hit that 1 rep max.
Yeah.
However, in the training, how things are progressing at the moment, a lot of the powerlifters and strongmen I treat with and like to learn from, they have structured training programs these days. Mm-hmm. So everyone thinks that they train 1 rep max every session, but they don't.
Yeah.
They try and peak for their competition, which newcomers to the gym are trying to PB every week. I would say I would see more injuries in people new to the gym who don't ask advice of others.
Interesting. Good little point there, actually. So yeah, guys, seriously, Eddie Hall is not going for 1 rep maxes. He's not hitting a 500 kilogram deadlift every single session. I think that kind of pressure on his body would probably keel him over pretty quickly. So yeah, and that goes for bodybuilding as well, guys. You know, you're never trying to cause injury. You're always trying to monitor your volume, always trying to monitor your frequency and everything like that, because you've got to balance the real risk of injury, and it is a real risk. So if you kind of go and balls to the wall, I know I preach failure and I preach balls to the wall failure, but this is controlled failure, guys. It's completely controlled. You know, every single exercise and rep I do is under control, it's under perfect form, and as soon as you feel that slack, that's when your risk for injuries goes right up. And when you find your form dropping, that's when the injury does go up. And I'm a case of that. I remember doing stupid 1 rep maxes when I shouldn't have done. Oh, my lower back's gone. It happens often, and it's just not worth it. So maybe take the weight down and just focus on that form first.
Definitely.
So something a little bit more general, maybe we can both have a little input on. So from a chiropractic point of view, let's talk about, for example, me, for example. So I have a very, weird imbalance in my body where my bottom left hand, like top of my glute, is just real sore. What would be the way to fix that versus if it was on the other side? Is it just a matter of different correcting or different treatment, or is it different exercises?
For one side to the other, generally with what you said, treatment plans basically identical. You just switch in from one side to the other. So if you have the problem on the left, there will be factors compensating on the right hand side. If you come in with the problem on the right, you'll have factors compensating on the left hand side. So in terms of treatment with the imbalances, there wouldn't be too much difference. All the exercises and rehab would be the same. However, you would focus on one side predominantly more than the other in the different areas. But long term things would be very, very similar.
Yeah.
Same problem, regardless of side. I will give the same sort of treatment and exercises.
And would you say if someone was to have a consistent, like, repetitive injury that, for example, a lower back problem that they just never fixed, and they just were, going to kind of naive that they need to get it fixed, and they just ignored it for years and years and years, would that in fact build up muscle imbalances, joint imbalances throughout the body, and would that be even harder to correct?
Yes, 100%. Males predominantly who I treat in the industry are a lot more stubborn. They have a niggle, like yourself, will just keep training through it. They think it's fine, it's just part of training, it's just what happens. From my point of view, yes, that person will be harder to help long term because they're always going to keep going through that pain threshold. If injury keeps recurring, yes, I can fix that problem and find out what's going on, but it may be worth them then addressing another healthcare professional, such as a strength and conditioning coach, etc., to look at the technique. Although, yes, I like looking at people's technique and what have you, it's not my forte.
Okay.
Too many people are very quick to offer their opinions when it's not their forte. And as much as I think I know about lifting, like a personal trainer or strength and conditioning coach, they know a hell of a lot more. Yeah,
and that's a great tip, guys. If you've got someone who's maybe just a physio and he's talking about how he can adjust your back and all this kind of stuff, like, you need to run away from that guy, because if it's not his his field of expertise, there's serious things that can go wrong, and vice versa as well. I mean,
of course.
So you've got to be careful. Unless you're a jack of all trades, then you're all good, of course. And then I guess we can move into like kind of muscle imbalances as well on this. I mean, we can talk about kind of injuries and stuff, but muscle imbalances, how would you fix a muscle imbalance?
So it depends really. If people think, is it a muscle imbalance? Is it in terms of functionality, or is there muscle imbalance in terms of looks? So you may have a big quad on one side and a slightly smaller one on the other, but there's normally a problem addressing. So, for example, for me, I will get right low back sort of dysfunction. This means I've built up a bigger outer quad sweep on my right hand side, and because I lean away to the left hand side, I've got a bigger adductor on the other side. So I know when I go on stage in pose, I will show off my right outer quad.
I remember doing that.
And my left adductor. If I go the other way, I look rubbish. So if you think you have an imbalance, or someone tells you an imbalance, the first thing you need to do is find someone you trust.
Okay.
Massively important. There's a lot of people in the industry, healthcare professionals, who are absolutely incredible, but if they don't understand the gym and lifting, it's really hard for you to relate to them when they say to rest, etc. The imbalances, you just need to find out why is there an imbalance. What are you doing wrong? So finding out the cause is always the top thing to know, because yes, I can fix the symptoms, but why are the symptoms there? And it's always addressing that underlying issue.
Exactly. It just comes back to form again, guys. I mean, if you're slightly off on one thing for a long period of time, you're going to build up imbalances, and maybe from a bodybuilding point of view, we've always been told, do your weaker side first. But yeah, like I said, like Ed said, find out what's actually causing the imbalance, rather than just jumping to conclusions and just doing like the standard thing is to say, oh, my right arm is smaller than my left arm, therefore I'm going to do more bicep curls on my right arm. Well, actually, there might be like an impingement somewhere that's causing your right arm not to grow and actually not to function properly. So maybe you can address that first. It's like prehab before the rehab. You got to put in the prehab before so you don't have to do the rehab. And that's one thing that I've struggled with. Ed's laughing because he knows I'm shit at it. So yeah, here's a great question from someone who just commented on my Instagram post. How do you know which chiropractor to see? How would you know? If I've never heard of a chiropractor before, someone's told me that I need my back adjusted. How do I find someone to see? What would you say is the best thing to do?
It's such a hard thing to find someone that you trust, because for me, knowing how hard the course was, I know every chiropractor out there basically is brilliant.
Okay.
However, certain ones are better in different fields. So you'll have ones who'll be better with pregnancy, some will be better with children, some will be better with older patients. If you are a bodybuilder, if you are a strongman, if you're a powerlifter, etc., you need to find someone on your same wage level.
Yeah.
So for me, I understand. For me, if I didn't train, I wouldn't know what to do. So I understand that if a patient comes in with an injury, yes, I will tell them to rest that particular area, but they can train around it.
Yeah.
I'll never stop them training completely. Obviously, unless it's really severe, then you look at alternatives. But that's regardless of chiropractor, physio, sports therapist. All health professionals want to help you.
Yeah.
If, say, in your area you have a sports therapist, a physio, and a chiropractor, if, say, the sports therapist is the one who lifts and trains all the time, they're probably a good port of call, or you can work around all different fields together. But it's all based on trust. And if you see someone's social media content that you like, I think it's always worth speaking to someone first before addressing it.
Yeah.
And also experience of other people in that field.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
If you speak to other trainers and they've seen someone who they like, who works for them, it probably will work for you too.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you said that, like, it was really cool how you said, like, I've done the course, I know how hard it is, you should be trusting these people. And that's such a great thing to say, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, this guy might, he might not be right for me, but really, like, these guys have been through years and years and years of training for this stuff, guys. So just find someone who's a little bit more specific rather than general, more towards you, and just go from there. And then you can have a treatment, see what happens. A lot of people have like a cheaper assessment fee or a free assessment fee, and you can go in and you can see what's going on, and then see if it works for you. And I'm also glad that you mentioned the social media. So I would love to have your take on these kind of new social media guys, like I don't know if you guys know this watching, but like Vinny Rehab, and all the Myo Detox people. What would you have to say about the way that these guys are putting out information, and should we be following this information, and is it trustworthy kind of stuff?
For me, yeah, like you say, the Myo Detox team are completely unique to tailor in the fitness industry. No one else has done anything like this. So for me, as a chiropractor, I will send all of my patients to look at their pages, because the mobility drills and the talk of technique, what have you, that they bring out is fantastic, because they say this is what you should do, but they also tell you why.
Yeah.
And some people only have to make slight little changes. This morning I watched Dr. Harden. He put up a video of when people say breaking the bar for a bench press, and he said just with different ways activating your lats makes a massive difference, but people don't know how to do that. So just a tiny little video with some interesting but helpful information is massive. And for me, Myo Detox, if I ever went abroad, that would 100% be the kind of way of line that I want to work.
Yeah.
That I would see myself fitting in with their team.
Amazing. Great. And another question from one of the guys. So we mentioned it briefly a little bit earlier, but how would you fix hips when you're tight squatting? So, someone's squatting down, they're bending right over because their hips are just pulling them right in. What would you think is the most common reason for that, and how would you fix that?
For me, tight hips on a squat literally means tight hips. So if you're having hip pain when squatting, your hips are not functioning how they should be. For me, it's kind of become my hobby because it's such a common problem that I see. The hip flexor, in my opinion, is the most important muscle in the whole of the body. I know it's such a small muscle, but I've had injuries in the past with them. If I knew what I knew now, I probably wouldn't be a chiropractor. I'd be playing my professional football still. But the hips are massively important. If your hips are tight, it pulls your pelvis forward, which predominantly in, say, a high bar squatter, for example, will make them lean even further.
Yep.
If the hips are tight, you can't brace the core properly, and you can't engage your glutes properly. The glutes are the biggest muscle group in the body, and the core is so important for everyday tasks. So if your hips are catching you in the squat, you need to go back to basics and stretch the hip flexors properly. Everyone stretches the hip flexor incorrectly, so again, I would go on Dr. Harding's page and watch his video on how to stretch the hip flexors properly, because we all stretch them tilted forwards, which is where the problem is. Whereas if we did it in the anatomical plane we should be in, you would actually stretch the hip muscle itself and not just the joint capsule. That in essence will automatically allow you to engage your core and glutes again, which if you drop the weight back down, you will progress back up to be higher, better, more efficient than you are, and can incorporate all the correct muscle groups.
Awesome. So we keep mentioning Dr. Harding. I'm going to link his Instagram in the below so you can click that stuff. And I know, and I know from speaking to Ed, like his stuff is super, super helpful for lots of different injuries as well. So, and then while we're on the topic of kind of like fixing kind of mild injuries, or maybe kind of mobility, what would you be suggesting for someone who's got maybe like a less mobile thoracic spine? Actually, let's take it right down to the bare minimum. So for those people who don't know what the thoracic spine is, and someone who might have a problem with it, how would you describe it, and what would you say for mobility, to increase mobility?
Thoracic spine is basically from the bottom part of your neck to all the way down to your lumbar spine. So it's quite a big portion. You've got 12 individual segments. The thoracic spine is very common. It's the biggest part of the spine, if that makes sense. However, most people struggle with mobility there these days because they work 9 till 5 and they're sat, their shoulders are hunching forward, their heads are coming forward, and then they go into the gym, don't warm up properly, and they just bang, hit the bench. You're bringing everything further forward again. So for me, to improve thoracic mobility would just be keep making sure you're focusing on your posture. If your posture's better through work, so get up once an hour, have a little walk around, pull your shoulders back just for 30 seconds once an hour, and make sure then when you go to the gym, you do warm up properly. You warm up the rotator cuff muscles, you make sure you train back with some of your push movements. So for example, for me, if I have a heavy push session, I will do one, say like a face pull exercise at the end to pull things back. It's all to do with posture. Because if you really over mobilize your thoracic spine, say for example you're a low bar squatter, if you have too much mobility in your thoracic spine, you can't get that tension to hold the bar tight. So everyone's different, but posture is so important. And if you're struggling and need that little bit of work to have a good foundation, then I'm here to sort that first and go from there. So there's loads of different ways of going about it, but I think if it's really tight and it's been prolonged, see your health professional, then they can go through all those exercises with you and give you the advice while you're there.
Great. I love that. And then I guess staying on kind of that kind of area, SI joint rehab exercises. I mean, I guess you need to know the problem with the SI joint, but I mean, is there maybe a common injury with the SI joint that you see?
Yes, so SI joint is, in general, if you've got an SI joint problem, normally it can be uncomfortable for sitting for long periods, it can be uncomfortable if you stand for long periods. It's basically all to do with, if you're not moving, it stiffens up. However, then it affects you with your compound lifts, so your squats, your overhead press, your deadlift, even your bench press, for example, because you feel you will rotate to one side. For me, when someone comes into the clinic with that problem, I will rectify the problem and address the other issues. And the most important exercise I give them are very, very basic, are a hip flexor stretch,
Yep.
a glute activation, which would just be a glute bridge, and a core activation, which would just be a dead bug. Because if your hip flexor moves properly, you engage your glutes and your core, you're going to bring that pelvis from being forward back to neutral where it should be.
Yeah.
And I only give out the basic exercises because PTs, strength and conditioning coaches, etc., they're the ones with the knowledge to progress the exercises on. So I would just give the basics. It's not my forte, but enough to help that patient. And people from there then can really respond onwards and really enjoy their training without being held back.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. And then probably a question from personally, just from me. Say, let's just take me, for example, someone who is very kind of competitive in the industry and, you know, trains 5 days a week and has goals and is looking to progress everything every single week, irregardless of a prep. I mean, maybe it changes prep to not prep. How often do you think that someone like me should come in to see someone like you?
It's a very tough question, because it depends on you as an athlete and the practitioner you're working with. Regularly, definitely, because if I'm keeping you injury free, you can work at your maximum all the time. So if the joints in the spine work perfectly, you could say, all the muscles can work at their maximum potential.
Yeah.
And if you can work at your maximum potential all of the time, you're always going to be progressing if you're pushing yourself and you're eating more, obviously, for that progression upwards on a bulk, and then maintaining while you're cutting back down.
Yeah.
So it's between you and the practitioner.
Okay.
What works for you. So I might see you a bit more frequently to start with to get that good solid foundation, and then we just kind of MOT you every month or so, or couple of months. You will know what works, because you will feel in your body when you're not functioning at your best. So if you know your diet's spot on, you know your training something's not feeling right, you know then you need to get back in, make sure everything's okay, and then you can keep progressing.
Great. Amazing. I'm just going to
So it's hard to be specific with that, but you just need that trust with your practitioner to make sure you're always functioning at the top of your game.
Absolutely. And guys, when we talk about trust with our practitioner, trust also doesn't just come over one session. You know, it comes of just kind of exploring each other as he assesses your body. You can really kind of get a feel of like if this guy is kind of reading your body right, because you know where the build up of your problems are, and I know that whenever I go into Ed, I can just stand there and he just goes, yep, there. Presses there. Okay, that's where all the problems are. Nice one, Ed. Cheers. Great. Exhausted all of the questions. If there's anything else that you wanted to talk about, maybe a topic that you thought could be raised, or maybe some more common injuries that can be kind of talked about. If not,
well, there's like we said back with thoracic mobility, etc. The body kind of works in twos, in my opinion. You got your upper and your lower. The lower normally is pelvic problems, which affect everything.
Yep.
Upper is too many people these days, like you said earlier with the posture, then they're getting these impingement kind of problems in the shoulders.
Yeah.
If you pull your shoulders forward and then try and lat raise or press, you can't function properly.
Yep.
So if you're like that all day from 9 till 5, when you then go to the gym and go, well, chest session wasn't very good today, couldn't contract your chest, it's a no-brainer really. But you need someone to tell you that, because for me that seems simple because I deal with it every day. But for someone who sits there, they don't think, oh, maybe my posture's been bad. You need someone to address that, and it's spreading that awareness through social media, etc., like we mentioned earlier with the Maya Detox guys, which is really helping people to progress, and people are only then going to get stronger, bigger and better because they're functioning properly.
Absolutely. So would you say if maybe someone's in the gym, they've been training in the gym for a while, I do know a lot of people like this as well, and maybe they're benching and they just don't feel it in their chest, they just feel it in their triceps and their shoulders, you think that maybe they've got an issue maybe with posture or kind of mobility or something like that?
Definitely. For me, really, a couple of years of training, as we found with my prep and that, my chest has always been a weakness.
Yeah.
So by doing a lot more rehab work, or prehab work, you could say as well, I'm finding my strength is going up, my range of motion is better. I'm actually getting a chest pump on a chest day.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, I've always been told I have quite good shoulders. And going through one session with a bodybuilding specialist, he said, you have used your shoulders in every one of these chest exercises.
Yeah.
And this is why, therefore, you have no chest. But you need someone to tell you that. Your mates at the gym, yeah, you watch videos online, etc., and they're great, but having that hands-on approach sometimes with someone who, say, competes, like I've had with you, for example, just a slight tweak on hand positioning,
yeah,
and you're like, wow, that's how it should feel. And then you can progress properly because you're always activating that muscle group.
Yeah.
Too many now want to lift super heavy. I probably lift less now, weight-wise, than when I first started in the gym. But I'm now going through a full range of motion and I'm growing.
Yeah.
So instead of doing like a quarter rep squat or a quarter rep incline press where I haven't even activated my chest, it's just been triceps, drop the ego and the weights will increase. You've seen how much progression you've made on your bulk.
Yeah.
With perfect technique, just progressing.
Yeah, exactly.
But you've taken 5 years to get to that stage.
Yeah.
By training consistently and properly.
Exactly.
Where, say, I've been in the gym about 3 years or so now, and I'm learning new things every day.
Yeah.
And what works and what doesn't. And I think finally now, when we start working together again on Monday, I know I've got a good base and knowledge base as well to work and improve like I want to.
Yeah.
It's taken me a lot of time.
Absolutely. Actually thinking I've got a little bit of time here. I'd love to maybe delve just a few questions into your prep and prep life.
Yeah,
Maybe move away from the chiropractor and the injuries and stuff a little bit. So I'd love to know if you could give one piece of advice, because this would be very interesting for me after prepping you twice.
Yes.
One piece of advice to someone who is completely new to the thought of competing and they say, I want to compete. What do you say?
If you're completely new and you're thinking about it, you need to know who is going to work for you. For me, there was no question that I would pick anyone other than yourself to prep me. I know for you, you've trained consistently for so many years, but I also know that for myself as a natural athlete, and knowing that you're a natural athlete too, I know that things that you've utilised will work for me.
Yeah.
And I know you've done so many consistent shows to build up that knowledge. There are too many people. I probably could have done it myself. I've prepped for one show, I can start offering out meal plans and nutrition plans. I know that sounds terrible, but I see it all the time on social media.
Yeah.
And you need someone reputable who you know is going to help you. So if you trust someone for the prep, the best advice on top of that, once you find them, is only listen to your coach.
Yeah.
Too many people offer their opinions when you're on prep, but if you've chosen to trust that coach, so stick with what they say and don't listen to anyone else.
Yeah.
That is my best prepping advice I can give anyone.
Yeah, this is so true. It's so true. I mean, I speak to Sammy every now and again. For those of you guys who don't know, Sammy's on prep now with my girlfriend. She comes in every week and she says, oh, I got told I should be doing this week. I got told I should be doing this that week. And I'm sure it's the same with you, Ed, every time you went into the gym.
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking a little bit bigger. Oh, you're looking not as lean. Oh, you're looking like you could be working on this. It's just like it's so much overload from so many different people. It is. And it's really a mental battle. It's really a mental battle to even say, ignore all these people and just listen to my coach. It is a mental battle.
100%.
And it's such a good barrier to get over, to just be like, you know what, fuck it, I need to listen to my coach, or I need to listen to myself, and I need to just do it. Great advice as well. And then let's talk about how lean you actually need to be. often, I mean, you'll see a lot of people on stage, they're just not lean enough. They're just not lean enough. They haven't dug deep enough. And I'd love for you to say, as a natural athlete, how it feels to be as lean. Let's go for your first competition, because you were to the bone shredded. Like, the glutes are in, the hamstrings are in. How does that feel? How does that actually feel for you? Day to day basis, how are you feeling?
Physically, you're drained. I'm absolutely on the limit, even to function.
Yeah.
However, when you wake up and you see that and you know how hard you've worked, it's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
This morning I was looking back at photos from my first show, because if I could carry that leanness with the muscle maturity we're going to hope to build over the next couple of years, I know I will have a successful package to bring on stage. But I think too many people think when they get lean for their first show, because that's the leanest they've ever been, they're just going to clean up and win everything. So for me, yes, we knew I was ridiculously lean. I couldn't have been any leaner, really.
I don't think you could have done. That was insane.
I hadn't spent... We dived into it quite quick. I need to spend more time as a natural athlete to build a solid foundation first.
Yeah.
So when we then did a year prep for the next show with a big bulk and cut, yes, I wasn't as lean, but I was much fuller. I was bigger and had more of a presence on stage.
Way more, yeah.
The posing is so important.
It really is.
Even going through prep, you're thinking, I look phenomenal. I don't need to pose because it's just going to look good. But someone else who looks just as good as you and has that presence on stage is going to be picked over you every single time.
Yeah, so true.
So I see so many phenomenal physiques. They've worked hard, they look great, but they don't know how to show it off on stage.
Yeah.
And yeah, my posing, for me, I feel awkward. Still, second show, I feel really awkward on stage. But when you get that call out and a bit of recognition that the hard work's has worked, I was loving life. I was pouting, I was doing all this silly stuff I said I'd never, ever do on stage. But you love it because you know your hard work's paid off.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the best feeling.
It is. I mean, 16, 20, 24, however many weeks that you've been cutting for, and then you get on stage and you know that you look the best you've ever looked. And we did, like, this year, you look the best you ever looked because of that fullness. There's nothing better. I mean, especially when you get in those first call-outs. God, I was going crazy when I heard that.
Me too.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And yeah, I'd just like to touch on what Ed said there in terms of, so we finished his first season. Great, looked great. We did a year bulk, guys, because he is natural. A year bulk. Guys, when people say that they're going on a 3 to 4 month bulk and they're putting on anything more than about 2 kilos, they're on steroids. I'm sorry. But like, I'm hoping to have put on maybe 1 kilo, 2 kilos, and I've been doing like a 9 month bulk. Guys, there is something to be said for doing it for the long run, because, you know, like me and Ed have got the game plan now to just have a good, solid, thick, hard bulk for 2 years now. 2 years, like that. It's going to be 2 years of just straight calorie surplus, maybe a few little diet breaks in between so we can push the calories up higher. But that's what it has to take. If you're going to be a natural athlete, you need to be able to push on for years at a time to add slabs of muscle, because it doesn't happen like that if you haven't got exogenous hormones in your body, unfortunately. So if someone's telling you that they can put on 7-8 kilos in a year, and you've been training for a while, it's pretty damn difficult to do. It is really, really difficult. Maybe in the first couple of years of training you could probably look to do that, but really, really you need to be looking long term. And that's something that we've always done with Ed. We've always given him enough time to get shredded. We've always given enough time to put on, make a difference. And the difference, what was the difference in stage weights in the end?
I think that I was 3 kilos heavier, but looked of lean muscle, but looked about 10 kilos bigger.
Yeah. It was actually crazy. The difference.
It was only 3, so although I bulked up and I was 8-9 kilos heavier on my bulk, I thought, great, I'm going to be 8-9 kilos heavier when I'm lean, but it doesn't work that way.
No, exactly.
Once you strip all that extra fat, so I probably went a little bit overboard on that last month of my bulk.
Yeah.
Because I had Christmas, and you said to me, Ed, we need a 16-week cut for this show, and I said to you, no. And for me, you need to listen to a coach, because we had 11 and a half weeks to prep for this second show, which wasn't enough time, but we brought it in because you know what you're doing and you know I will listen to you.
Yeah.
However, because family time for me, Christmas is important, but if you're at the top level, say for yourself, those sacrifices need to be made. So I was a bit selfish in terms of that, but we did bring it in.
We did bring it in as well. And I'd love to just touch on finally how important being super anal about it, being so regimented and strict, and kind of like Ed is one of those guys who, if I say jump off a cliff on prep, he's going to jump off a cliff, because it's just like it's because it's just like it has to be like I'd let Ed talk about how meticulous that he was and how meticulous that he has been over everything over this prep. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how consistent you need to be on that.
Oh yeah, of course. When your coach says you need to train this, you need to eat that, you do that, because if you just have a little cheat bit every now and again, it's just not going to work. So for me on my first show, because I was so ridiculously lean, I wasn't having a refeed. As for my refeed, I was having a cheat meal.
Yeah. Whereas
I learned this time that when your coach says you can have a refeed meal, it means more of what you're eating. It doesn't mean you can go out and have a pizza, you can go and have a Oreo milkshake. It doesn't work like that. For me, as a natural athlete, I think, personally, I couldn't get as lean if I wasn't as strict. If I followed one of these, if it fits your macros approaches, which I know is big in the field at the moment.
Huge.
Personally, for me, I don't think I would get as lean with a higher sugar, say, content, for example, in my peak week. For natural, everyday lifestyle, yeah, if it fits your macros, it's perfect, because you get a good balance of everything. But if you want to compete at the top level, if you're not meticulous with your seasoning, so in terms of if you're smashing loads of sugary sauce over all your meals, yes, it still probably doesn't even taste that great still.
Yeah.
But you are having those extra bits you don't need. So for me, I had the same meals every week, every day, and just reduced the calories accordingly, like I was told, and I didn't change my food group. So yes, I prepped all of my prep through chicken, rice, and veg. But chicken, rice, and veg gets me super lean. That means I can carb up correctly on the peak week.
Exactly.
But your only enemy is yourself on prep. If you cheat, you know, your prep knows, your coach knows if you don't come in, that really maybe you haven't been listening to their advice.
Yeah.
Because it's you against you at the end of the day. For me, my plan was to bring the best possible package I could bring. I didn't care about anyone else on that stage. If I looked the best I've ever looked in my life, what more do you want? Yeah,
I remember asking you maybe 2 weeks out, have you seen any other guys? You said, I don't know, don't care. It's not about that. It's not about that.
It isn't about that.
And there's definitely something to be said for that, guys. You can get lost in looking at people backstage. You can get lost at looking at people pump up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Everyone looks different. Not only does everyone look different on stage, but you're not trying to beat them. You're trying to beat yourself. And if you beat them in the process, great. You know.
Great. Yeah, of course.
Exactly. Awesome. It's been great having you on, Ed. All of Ed's socials will be right in the description box. I'm going to stick them on screen right now. If you're in the Gloucestershire area or just outside the Gloucestershire area, you can get in there. I would highly recommend Ed at Ed the Fixer Chiropractic. He has helped me so much over the years, and I'm excited for him to help me even more over the years. And hopefully we'll be bringing the best package that we both can in a couple of years, and hopefully me this year. So it's been great having you on, mate. It's been great having you on. That's it, man. Chasing it down. It's been great having you on, mate. Appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Enjoyed it.